Western Front, August 1st, 1915. The evening sky above the battlefield is calm for a moment. From the cockpit of his British BE-2C aircraft, a lieutenant watches flames rising from a German airfield below. The bombing raid has been successful. Smoke climbs into the fading light as the British aircraft turns away from the target. Then he hears it, the roar of another engine behind him. He looks back and sees a German monoplane closing in quickly. It is a Fokker Eindecker, a single-wing fighter aircraft. At the controls is a German pilot who will soon become famous, Lieutenant Max Immelmann. The British pilot is not overly worried at first. According to the accepted doctrine of the time, German aircraft cannot fire directly forward. Any machine gun mounted on the nose would immediately destroy its own propeller. The spinning blades would be torn apart by the bullets. German fighters usually mounted their guns on the wings instead. That arrangement made them awkward to aim and easy for enemy pilots to avoid. But something about this attack is different. Immelmann is approaching directly from behind, lined up perfectly with the British aircraft. Even stranger, his machine gun appears to be aimed straight through the spinning propeller. It seems impossible. Then the muzzle flashes begin. Bullets burst forward through the spinning propeller disc. The British pilot stares in disbelief as rounds rip into the fuselage of his aircraft. The impossible has just become real. The pilot is hit in the arm, controls are damaged. The aircraft shudders under the impact of hundreds of bullets. Immelmann continues firing relentlessly. For nearly 10 minutes, the wounded British pilot struggles to maneuver his crippled aircraft. Around 450 rounds are fired during the attack. Finally, the BE-2C can no longer stay in the air. The damaged aircraft spirals downward and crashes behind German lines. Miraculously, the British pilot survives. During interrogation, he tells his captors about the strange weapon he encountered, a machine gun firing directly through a spinning propeller without striking the blades. What he witnessed was the beginning of a new era in aerial warfare. Since the beginning of World War I, pilots had struggled with a fundamental problem. The most obvious place to mount a machine gun on an aircraft was directly in front of the pilot. That way, the pilot could simply point the entire aircraft at the target and fire. But the propeller stood in the way. Early aircraft had large propellers spinning right in front of the cockpit. 2 or 3 blades rotated more than 1,200 times per minute. If a machine gun fired forward, the bullets would instantly smash into the propeller blades. The propeller would shatter, the aircraft would break apart, and the pilot would almost certainly die. Engineers and pilots tried several awkward solutions. Some aircraft mounted guns above the upper wing so they could fire over the propeller arc. However, these guns were extremely difficult to aim accurately. The British experimented with pusher aircraft. In these designs, the propeller was placed behind the pilot instead of in front. This allowed a machine gun to be mounted in the nose. But pusher aircraft were slow, underpowered, and vulnerable to enemy fighters. Other pilots tried mounting guns on the wings angled outward to avoid the propeller. But this required complicated calculations to hit a moving target, making accurate shooting very difficult. French ace captain Anthony Fokker mounted a Lewis gun on the wing struts of his aircraft and fired at an angle away from the propeller. He managed to shoot down enemy aircraft and even earned the Victoria Cross. But the system was extremely difficult to use. Early aerial combat was clumsy and often ineffective. Most encounters ended without serious damage. That would soon change. A French pilot named Roland Garros attempted a new solution in early 1915. Working with engineer Raymond Saulnier, Garros modified his Morane-Saulnier Type L aircraft. Instead of trying to avoid the propeller, he decided to protect it. Steel deflector plates were attached to the propeller blades. If a bullet struck the propeller, the metal plates would deflect the bullet away. It was a crude idea, but it worked. On April 1, 1915, Garros tested the system in combat. During an attack on a German reconnaissance aircraft, he fired directly through his propeller. The German crew was shocked. Garros shot the aircraft down. It was the first air-to-air victory using a forward-firing machine gun. Over the next 2 weeks, Garros destroyed 4 more German aircraft. The French press celebrated him as a national hero. However, the system had serious problems. The metal plates reduced the efficiency of the propeller, and bullets sometimes ricocheted unpredictably. Then fate intervened. On April 18, 1915, Garros was hit by ground fire and forced to land behind German lines. He was captured before he could destroy his aircraft. The Germans now had the chance to examine the strange weapon system. The captured aircraft was sent to a Dutch aircraft designer working in Germany, Anthony Fokker. Fokker was only 25 years old, but already operated a successful aircraft factory. German military leaders ordered him to copy the French deflector system. But when Fokker examined the aircraft, he immediately saw a better solution. Instead of deflecting bullets, why not prevent the gun from firing when a propeller blade was in front of the barrel? In other words, let the propeller control the machine gun. The concept was simple. The propeller rotated about 1,200 times per minute. A machine gun fired roughly 600 rounds per minute. If the firing of the gun could be synchronized with the rotation of the propeller, bullets could pass safely through the gaps between the blades. Fokker designed a mechanical device to accomplish this. A cam was attached to the propeller shaft. This cam connected to the machine gun trigger through a pushrod linkage. When a propeller blade moved in front of the gun barrel, the cam blocked the firing mechanism. When the blade rotated out of the way, the gun was allowed to fire. The result was perfect synchronization between propeller movement and gunfire. Bullets passed safely between the blades. The propeller was never struck. Remarkably, Fokker built a working prototype in just 72 hours. The system was tested on May 19, 1915, at a German proving ground near Berlin. German pilots who witnessed the demonstration immediately understood its importance. Among them were future aces such as Oswald Boelcke, Max Immelmann, and Kurt Winkens. The device was installed on the Fokker Eindecker fighter. Soon the first combat tests began. On July 1, 1915, Lieutenant Kurt Winkens shot down a French Morane Saulnier aircraft using a synchronized forward-firing machine gun. Although the French did not officially confirm the loss, the event marked the first successful air-to-air kill using the new system. Just 1 month later, Max Immelmann achieved a widely recognized victory using the synchronized weapon. The age of modern aerial combat had begun. German pilots quickly developed new tactics to exploit their advantage. Before this innovation, aerial combat required pilots to maneuver beside enemy aircraft and fire awkwardly positioned weapons. Now they could simply aim the entire aircraft like a gun. The new tactic was simple and deadly: climb above the enemy. Dive from above, preferably out of the sun, so the target cannot see the approach. Fire a concentrated burst while closing in. Then continue the dive to escape. If the enemy survived, climb again and repeat the attack. Max Immelmann even developed a maneuver now known as the Immelmann turn. After diving, the pilot would climb steeply, roll over at the top, and reverse direction to attack again. The aircraft itself had become a weapon platform. From mid-1915 to mid-1916, German fighters dominated the skies in what became known as the Fokker Scourge. German aces such as Boelcke and Immelmann scored victories almost every week. The British Royal Flying Corps suffered heavy losses. In the second half of 1915 alone, more than 120 British aircraft were destroyed. Allied pilots became terrified of the new German fighters. Some reconnaissance missions required several escort aircraft just to survive. In reality, the Fokker Eindecker itself was not an exceptional aircraft. It was relatively slow and difficult to fly compared to many Allied planes. But the synchronized machine gun made it one of the most dangerous weapons in the sky. The German High Command tried to keep the technology secret. Pilots were ordered to remain over friendly territory to prevent their aircraft from being captured. But eventually several Fokker fighters fell into Allied hands. By early 1916, British engineers developed their own synchronization gear. The French soon followed with their own designs. By mid-1916, the technological advantage had disappeared, but the impact of the invention was permanent. From that point forward, synchronized forward-firing machine guns became standard equipment on fighter aircraft. The concept remained in use through World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and even into the early jet age. Modern air combat tactics, aiming the entire aircraft at the target and firing, began with Anthony Fokker's synchronization system. A simple mechanical linkage. A cam, a pushrod. Just 72 hours of engineering changed the future of aerial warfare forever.